Committee will come to order. Welcome to today's full committee hearing entitled Expediting Claims or Exploiting Statistics, an examination of VA's special initiative to process rating claims pending over 2 years. As I initially stated when this initiative was first announced, and as I will reiterate throughout the hearing today, although this new approach sounds promising, I think it's critical that this committee work closely to ensure that it's good policy and not just good public relations. I will admit, and people probably already know, that I was very frustrated by the fact that both Secretary Shinseki and the VA benefits officials had testified before this committee several times in the weeks just before this initiative was announced, yet there was no mention of this initiative to this committee as a means to address the backlog. I'd like to take this opportunity to emphasize that an open dialogue between VA and this committee about the backlog and other issues affecting the department is more than critical. So I hope VA will take this into consideration as it continues to address new strategies about how to address the backlog in the disability claims process. And turning back to the initiative that we're here today to focus on, I'd like to emphasize that VA must not shift resources and manpower away from processing new claims as they seek ways to clear out older claims. Every veteran deserves a thorough, fair, and timely evaluation of their claims, regardless of when that claim might have been filed. This policy should not interfere with that concept, and I hope that it is not a practice that will continue for a long period of time. However, the committee has heard several concerns from stakeholders in the process, namely that regional office employees lack guidance on how to carry out some aspects of the initiative. For example, it is currently unclear to many in the field how claims processors will follow up on provisional ratings that have been issued 1 year from now. Concerns have also been raised that VHA cannot schedule required VA examinations within the required time frame to have these oldest claims adjudicated by the June deadline. Further, there are some concerns that this initiative involves some statistical manipulation. For example, when a provisional rating is issued, the controlling end product is cleared. If a veteran submits additional evidence within the 1 year provisional period, this evidence is assigned a new end product with the date of claim being the date the new evidence was received, not the date that the underlying claim it is associated with was first filed. Although clearing and entering end products in this manner will ultimately make the statistics on the backlog look better, they do not get to the heart of the matter, which is how VA plans to improve its workload management processes in the future. Finally, VA has stated that of the claims it has completed as part of the initiative thus far, many were able to be finally adjudicated rather than issued provisional rating decisions. And this begs the simple question: why these claims were not adjudicated prior to the initiative? And again, what VA is doing to better address its workload management practices to prevent situations like this from arising in the future. Despite these concerns, I applaud VA for acknowledging that waiting a year, 2 years, or even longer is too long for our nation's veterans to receive their earned disability benefits. VA has stated that to date they have processed approximately 22,000 of the nearly 42,000 claims identified for the initiative, and that they believe they are on track to meet their target deadline of next month for adjudicating these claims. VA meeting one of its self-proclaimed deadlines would be a welcome change in our continued oversight of the backlog of disability claims. I look forward to hearing more about this initiative at our hearing today. I'd like to thank Undersecretary Hickey for being here, Deputy Undersecretary Rubens for appearing with us today, and I want to thank all those who submitted written statements for the record, and I want to yield to our ranking member, Mr. Michaud, for his opening statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing today, and I want to thank the panelists as well. While the VA continues to process more claims than at any other time in its history, demand continues to outpace production. Today, VA's total inventory is about 878,000 claims. More than two-thirds, or 593,000 of these claims, remain as part of the backlog. And I'm happy to note, since our hearing in March, there has been a reduction in the total inventory by about 18,000 claims. There are about 37,000 fewer claims that are considered backlog. I'm hopeful that the VA can hold the line and continue that downward slope in these numbers. However, at the current rate, I think we can all agree that the Secretary's goal of having no veteran wait for longer than 125 days with an accuracy rate of 98% by 2015 seems to be unlikely. Hopefully they can, but right now it seems to be unlikely. There are many initiatives I know the VA has put in place, such as fully developed claims, segmented lanes, e-benefits, stakeholder enterprise, veterans relation management, provisional payments, mandatory overtime, and the VBMS system. The list goes on. But all of these initiatives have been applied by the VA with the suggestion that the rise in efficiency will come when they have all been deployed fully. I would like to hear from this panel today how we know that the individual initiatives are working. The transformation with all of its individual initiatives has been deployed in some places for as long as 5 months at the high-performing stations. But the time has come to evaluate and share with Congress the initial results of this transformation rollout. With that said, I applaud the VA for taking big steps and moving quickly to transition into an entirely new processing system. I know that it has not been easy, and you all have been working very hard, and as such, my staff has worked with your team and within your framework to find solutions that will further assist you. Our members have introduced legislation that addresses issues raised by the VSOs, VA, and even VA's Advisory Committee on Disability Compensation, and I urge you to work with the committee and my staff to incorporate these ideas as you move forward. We also need to know from VA what policies, which may have been well intended to help veterans, are not in fact hurting them as a whole by resulting in delays that cannot be overcome with more people, technology, or processes. In regards to the provisional payments, we have spoken with the VSOs and others. They seem to be generally okay with the idea, but have asked that you work very closely with them and provide them regular updates on the efforts in the form of clear and convincing metrics that the initiative is working as intended. And I ask that you also keep this committee informed of your progress in that regard also. Far too many veterans are waiting far too many days to receive the benefits they have earned. We are all working towards the same goal, the timely and accurate completion of claims. We must continue to work together to achieve a claim system that lives up to the service and sacrifices of our veterans. And with that, General Hickey, I look forward to your testimony today, and I want to thank you once again, Mr. Chairman, for your continued effort to make sure that the backlog issue does not fall behind, and that you continue to have oversight hearings in that regard. So thank you very much, and I yield back.
Thank you very much to my good friend. I want to welcome the first and only panel that's going to be here with us today. We appreciate the Undersecretary Allison Hickey for being with us today. General, we appreciate the effort that you and your staff are putting into trying to eliminate the backlog. Accompanying General Hickey today is Deputy Undersecretary for Field Operations, Diana Rubens, and we appreciate you being here today. General Hickey and Ms. Rubens, we look forward to a free flow of information, not only at this hearing today, but afterwards as well. And Ms. Hickey, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Miller, Ranking Member Michaud, and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the Department of Veterans Affairs special initiative to address the oldest compensation claims in our inventory. On April 19th, I directed all regional offices to prioritize disability compensation claims that had been pending in our inventory for more than 2 years. Our goal is simple: give those veterans who have been waiting the longest a quality decision on their claim, and if granted, start the flow of compensation benefits as quickly as possible. I gave our regional offices 60 days to process this category of claims, which included those claims that were within 60 days of the 2-year mark when the directive was issued. At that time, that equated to 67,718 claims. Now that we're halfway through the 60-day period, I am pleased to report that VA's regional offices have completed 34,834 of those claims, or 51.4% of the total, and we are on track to complete this 2-year category of claims on schedule. And as we announced on 19 April, upon completion of the 2-year claims, we will shift our focus, after examining the lessons learned, to completing all claims that have been pending over 1 year, and do so over the next 5 months. In order to expedite claims decisions for veterans who have waited the longest, we made an important policy decision that allows for a provisional rating based on the current evidence that VA has obtained, provided it meets the minimum legal requirement. The goal of the provisional rating is to provide veterans applicable benefits more quickly, but at the same time, it provides them with a safety net. If a provisional decision is used, veterans have up to 1 year to submit additional evidence or request that VA obtain additional evidence to change the provisional rating. If the minimum required evidence to decide a claim is not present, like service treatment records or VA medical examinations, VA will not make a provisional decision until it is obtained. If a medical examination is needed to decide a claim, it will be ordered and expedited by VA's Health Administration. If a veteran submits additional evidence within a year of this provisional decision, their case will be fast-tracked. Should any rating increase be substantiated over the year, additional benefits will be retroactive to the date the claim was initially filed. If no additional action is requested by the veteran within that year, the provisional decision becomes final. As with all VA compensation claims decisions, the veteran then still has an additional year to appeal the final decision, and VA will provide instructions on how to do so. So far, I am encouraged that this initiative, along with our transformation components, is working. For veterans who have waited the longest, they are getting decisions on their claims. The grant rate for this 2-year category of claims to date is 70% and is on par with our historic averages. These are quality decisions for our veterans. Our national claim level quality for April was 90.57%, an all-time high for VBA. And medical issue quality within that claim averaged 95.9%. This initiative is also helping impact the backlog. The current backlog of claims, which had reached a high of 611,000 in March, is now 561,000, meaning we have reduced the backlog by 50,000 claims in less than 2 months. And as of today, we've completed over 29,000 more claims than we did at this same point last year. While working the oldest claims, VA will continue to prioritize veterans who require expedited processing, such as those who are homeless, facing extreme financial hardship, are terminally ill, former prisoners of war, Medal of Honor recipients. Those service members being discharged from the military due to combat wounds or injuries will continue to be processed separately in the Integrated Disability Evaluation System, and then on average receive their rating decision 2 months after leaving the military. We will also continue to prioritize fully developed claims, a critical part of eliminating the backlog. With our help of our great partners in the veteran service organizations, many here today, we have grown fully developed claims from 3% of our inventory in January to nearly 10% today. In conclusion, our oldest claims first initiative is a good example of the continuous effort to find ways to improve on our processes. And I appreciate, Chairman, your leadership and the supporting members of your committee here who played a key role in hosting the National Roundtable with private industry last week to promote ongoing innovative thinking for us. This initiative fully complements the ongoing implementation of our long-range strategic plan and helped to eliminate the backlog in 2015. Mr. Chairman, it concludes my statement. I'm pleased to answer any questions you or the members of this committee have.
What do you say to the veteran who has a claim that's been pending for 2-3 years, that all of a sudden, within 30 days, you've been able to give a permanent decision after they've waited 3 years, 2 years? How does that happen, that a file can sit that long without a permanent decision being done?
So, Chairman, thank you for the question. So the very first thing I say is that we just don't find that acceptable either. I know nobody on this committee finds it acceptable, and I know this nation's veterans, their family members, and survivors deserve better. I will tell them that while we were doing other claims that waited for more than 50 years, we took 37% of our workforce out of the main body of claims, leaving 63% to do the rest of those claims, while the 37% focused on those 260,000 Agent Orange claims for our Vietnam veterans over the last 2.5 years. Yes, claims got old. They did. We are sorry about that. We're working hard to get answers for those veterans. And as I said, we have now, for those veterans who have been waiting longer than 2 years, have now completed 51.4% of those claims, and we expect to be on target in the next 60 days. We took that manpower, that FTE that had been pointed at those Agent Orange claims. They required a little additional training because they'd only been doing 3 presumptive conditions for 2.5 years. Once we got them kind of back up to speed and could go ahead and surge on that, that's why we focused on getting these old claims done.
So you tell the veteran that's waited for 3 years to get an answer that the excuse is the Nemers claims were the result of that?
No, Chairman, it's not an excuse. It's not an excuse at all, and we don't ever want it to be in that situation again, which is why we are working very hard at the same time to transform the way we have a 1950s vintage paper process system in VBA.
Who made the decision to open up the presumptives for Agent Orange?
Chairman, the presumptive process, I believe, is a system process that starts with a series of studies and analysis and recommendations.
Who made the decision?
At the end of the day, after the recommendations through the IOM process, the Secretary makes that decision.
Why did the Secretary not make any preparations for the immediate influx of claims that would be coming in to the system? I have heard the excuse of the Nemers claims over and over. You and I both know that not every regional office handled Nemers claims. They were brokered and they were sent to targeted areas. But that's not an acceptable reason for the backlog being over 600,000 claims right now over 125 days.
So, Chairman, I will say that what did happen during that time frame is that we took all of the 13 day one brokering centers, that's our complete VBA surge capacity, out of the system, and they were very engaged almost exclusively on those Nemer Agent Orange claims. So the capacity that we used to have in the system to help us when we had a surge became focused on doing those claims. I think the good news is that we have reduced that 600,000 now down to 560,000 by 50,000 claims in the last month.
And we are at a point now where the Secretary had said back in 2010 that we would be at a point that we'd be processing claims at 160 days.
So, Chairman, I can't address that data point, so I don't negate it for you. I will certainly go look and see what that number is. But what I can say is that we have not only increased our quality in which what we're doing, which is a key part of what our focus has been for the last 18 months to 2 years. It's up now at 9. In April, our quality numbers went over 90% for our claim level quality and 95% for our medical issue level quality. So we've been focused on getting a better answer to our veterans. And so I think that the fact that we are, turning the curve, we've had now, almost a month worth of data points that show that we are producing more claims. In fact, we are, I think I said in my testimony up front, some 30,000 plus claims ahead of where we were this time last year. So we are seeing some productivity improvements. I can also tell you that associated with some of our transformation efforts, we are seeing improvements in the number of claims that our raters are doing by a full 13%, and that number is growing in terms of their productivity by being in a segmented lane and by utilization of the rules-based calculators and the evaluation builders built into VBMS if they're on it, and also to some of the other training that we have done through challenge training, which this committee has so wonderfully supported us in budgets to allow us to do.
All right, thank you very much. There's a great fear that VA is going to use this initiative to improve your numbers in the long run by getting rid of the oldest claims in one fell swoop. And everybody hears that and they think that that's a great result. But I think that VA's numbers will show a markedly high average days to complete in the short term due to the mass clearing out of these claims. But the figures that everyone has been tracking has been the numbers of claims pending, and the average days pending will improve greatly by cutting these old claims out of the pile. So the end products of these claims are being cleared. This eliminates the accurate tracking of the actual time it takes to get the veteran his or her rightful benefit. There are additional serious concerns on end product designations at large and the entire work credit system. But that is not the focus of our hearing today, and instead may be the focus of future discussions. So the purpose of this hearing, how will VBA track the 2-year claims?
Chairman Miller, thank you for the question. I'll start, and then I will ask the person who does that every single day, all day long, from up here in the Directorate of Field Operations, Diana Rubens, to further elaborate. But essentially, we have identified every single claim. We know where it is. We know how old it is. And we know where the veteran is. And we are managing that at a case management level, a very high case management level to complete every one of them. We are partnered and are in multiple daily calls with our VHA leaders for compensation and pension health exams.
But I apologize. My time is very limited. How are you going to track those claims after the fact?
So, Chairman, when we complete these claims, and most of them are in paper, as you might imagine, these are not the new claims that we're bringing in now into an electronic environment and scanning and getting them into a paperless environment. These are ones that existed in paper. But when we complete them, we are scanning them in.
I'm sorry, do the new ones and the old ones have the same end product number?
I'm going to have to defer that to Chairman Miller to Secretary Rubens.
Thank you, General Hickey. Chairman Miller, there are two things that we're actually able to use to track.
End product number. Okay.
So there's a
paper claim and it's a new, fully developed electronic claim. Same end product number.
Same end product code, but within our system today, there are claim labels and flashes that we're able to use to identify whether it's a VBMS claim or a paper claim. To your first question of how are we going to track the claims that we're doing during this 2-year effort, we'll be able to look at those completed during this time, and anything that may have needed a provisional rating, we will identify through a code that we'll have input into the system when we made that decision, as well as the ability to search within the rating decision itself, the language that says, hey, this was a provisional decision. So we will be able to maintain a list of which were those claims done during this period in the 2-year effort, as well as any that may have required a provisional decision.
Chairman, there's one more thing I would, if I can, just add to that equation. Thus far, we've actually completed 95% of those claims that I've described to you. That 51.4% we've completed without having to use a provisional decision, but using a regular process. And I acknowledge your comment. Well, if you could do it then. Why can't you do it now? And I think I tried to address that. It's demand capacity for some elements of us there. But what the bottom line is that there's 5% that are in this provisional status. And so we are managing those by name, by veteran, by claim number now. As we move them through the process, we have that original list, and we will continue to manage them as necessary by name, by veteran, by claim number.
Mr. Michaud.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So 95% of the 51.4% are final. They're complete.
Yes, yes, they are, Congressman.
At those stations that have been in the transformational process since January, such as Milwaukee, what upticks have been seen in quality and effectiveness in processing the claims?
So, Congressman, thank you for your question. I don't have the specific information on each of those regional offices. I can get it for you. I'm happy to provide it to you. But what I can tell you in general is that we see, because of the segmented lanes, we see an increase of about 13% for our raters being able to rate cases in their productivity. We see claims volume going through the express lane at about that same level of increase, going through the one or two medical issue claims that can get through faster. And I think I've equated that a little to, you know, your grocery store experience, not being behind the cart full of groceries, but going through the express lane with your couple of little bit of items, you can get through faster. That's what our express lane has done. We have been able to process more claims through that lane as a result. We're also, by the way, putting our fully developed claims through that lane now too. And I appreciate, again, our VSOs who are so actively, and state directors, county service officers, so actively engaged in helping us with that effort.
What information could you provide the committee that can clearly articulate the transformation initiatives that are leading to the quality and effectiveness? And when can we expect to see that information?
So, Congressman, I can clearly provide you that information. I know we report our quality statistics to you all in a number of different reports, but if you want it very specifically, I'm happy to provide it very specifically. The issues, the things that we have put in the transformation strategic plan that are directly impacting quality are first and foremost under our people initiative. Is our challenge training, and this committee has been very supportive of funding us for the budgets for which we are now doing and seeing great results associated with a national training program, a national curriculum, pre-test, post-test checks at the 3, 6, 9, and 12th month process to make sure that the training stuck and it's good. We have also, due to the generosity of this committee as well, have extended that into what we call station enhancement training, which is where we go to a complete regional office and we retrain everybody top to bottom to make sure that they've had a reset in terms of what they've done. We've done that in Oakland when we did. Their quality rose by 8%. Their productivity rose by 27%. We did it in LA. We're seeing their quality raise as well. Their productivity raising as well. We've just completed it in Baltimore. We've already seen Baltimore's quality increase a couple of percentage points as well.
Okay. One of the primary concerns of the VSOs with regards to the provisional payments is that the VA keeps them and the VSOs informed and updated on the outcomes of that initiatives. What will be included in those communications, and how often will you communicate that to the VSOs? And will you agree to provide the same information to the committee?
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. We are, in fact, Friday morning I have a meeting with my standing monthly meeting with all the VSOs, and I know that this will be a topic of a conversation where I will brief them on some of the things that I have talked to you already before on where we are in terms of the production of those claims, where we are in terms of the quality of those claims, where we are in terms of I'm sorry, there's one more and I'm missing it, but I'll grab it in the rest of the conversation. And in terms of our grant denial rates, I know they're particularly interested that we don't end up in a bad situation on that, and I can confirm for you that we are on par with the way we normally and typically grant and deny these rates. It's in the 70% range. And we will also they also have access inside the regional office to individuals by name for helping them to know what the status of a particular claim is.
Great. But my last question, if you had to pick one policy requirement that you believe may be in fact negatively affecting veterans due to the challenges it presents in providing timely decision, what would that one policy be?
If I could pick two. Congressman, the first I would pick is something we have discussed before, and that is a complete, absolutely complete service treatment record at the departure of a service member from service. And when I mean absolutely complete, I mean not just what happened to be in the paper record when the member left, but I mean every bit of their, if they had medical services, inpatient treatment, outpatient treatment, contract medical, TRICARE, on ship, on board, Guard Reserve, their complete service treatment record, 100% of it. That the DOD certifies to me that they have done the exhaustive search. That is one, DOD has agreed to do that with me. I have given them to 1 June. They needed a little time to get it all set up, and I've given them to 1 June. We've agreed on the 1 June date, so I should be seeing those complete records coming across. That will make a big difference for people moving forward. I still have, as you well know, a number of veterans of different eras where nobody did get their TRICARE record or their inpatient hospital record or all those things before they came to me, which puts us in a bit of the hunt and search mode, trying to make sure we can say yes instead of having to deny because there is nothing in a service treatment record. That's one. The second one is, I know it's in some legislative concept packages we sent forward, and it has to do with closing claims in the appeals process and allowing us to move forward with decisions rather than continue to add new claims into the appeals process.
Thank the gentleman, and the chair will now recognize himself for 5 minutes for questions. And thank you both for being here. Undersecretary Hickey, obviously this plan has been in the works for some while. If you've kind of alluded to retraining some people, how long has it been in the pipeline? Because I know personally it was kind of sprung on me by Secretary Shinseki one afternoon.
So Chairman Runyon, thank you for the question, and I will just tell you, as we finished off those 260,000 Agent Orange claims and took that 37% of the workforce and recycled them into the full body of medical diagnostic codes that they had been trained on, we were thinking then, okay, where do we need to go tackle this in a big way? I would tell you that we started thinking about it, this and many other different kinds of ways of how do we point at those environments. Started thinking about it in a strategic way, maybe January of this year, not early, January, February of this year, and then started trying to make sure there weren't any second, third order effects, negative effects. That takes a lot of deep dive into a lot of data and moving it around. So there was no intention whatsoever. We just wanted to make sure we were on solid, good ground to do this kind of an effort and to make a difference in a really specific group of veterans who have been waiting the longest. So that's literally it was working it and figuring it out. So that's where we were.
So you're the 37% that you say were working NEMR claims is the only part of the workforce that you're really using? You're not taking from anywhere else?
Oh, no, not at all, Chairman. It's the complete, we are leaning in, all on board. This is a full, huge effort for us to go take care of those claims, those veterans and their family members and survivors who have been waiting the longest for a decision from us. And now 51.4% of those old claims as of today have an answer they have long deserved from us. So I'll be real clear about that. And by the way, the employees that are doing this right now are leaning forward in a productivity and quality way in to make this happen because they care about getting those answers done as well. They are very committed to this. I'm asking a lot of them. They know that 52% of them are veteran, and probably 98% of them are a direct family member of a veteran, and they want us to make sure we're answering these old claims as well.
Now, what happens to a veteran's claim? Obviously, you give a provisional, and he falls outside of that year window that you're giving them to give, obviously, another medical exam, or you're finding more paperwork. What happens to that claim after that point?
So at the end of the provisional, thank you, Chairman. The way the process works is we give the provisional if required to do a provisional. We may be able to do as we have now done with 95% of the ones we've already done in that big bucket. We may be able to get all the data we need and get it completed. But in the provisional bucket, if they have in that provisional environment, we will keep asking if they want us to for different places to get data like DOD medical records or DOD DD-214s or different fields in that, or private medical records. We'll keep asking, or they can get them and bring it to us as well. Anything else they might need that they found later on. We will consider that all the way up for that whole next year. If at that next year point in time they have not found the evidence and it falls outside of that, they are still entitled to another complete year of an appeals process as well. So they actually get a bigger safety net than we've actually had in the system before.
Now, and I think Chairman Miller was kind of alluding to this too, because there is obviously going to be a huge impact on your metrics and or statistical analysis. Say a year from now, 5 years from now, I think we question you, and we've had hearings on this many times. We have to be very careful that we're not playing, us as members of Congress have to be very careful we're not allowing you to play games with the numbers to make it better than it seems. What do you intend to do with these numbers? Because obviously it's going to shine well on you, but again, it's a problem that we've created. We want to be very careful on how we present this to our veterans.
So, Chairman Runyon, thank you for your comment, and I can understand some of your skepticism, so I will acknowledge that. But I want to just, if I can say, none of this for us is about making our numbers look better. Every bit of this for us is about taking care of a veteran, their family member, and their survivor. And none of us are pleased there's anybody we have to be doing this for today that's been waiting longer than 2 years. None of us are. So this for us is about our I-CARE core values. This for us is about the mission that we need to drive all the way home to make sure that we care for our veterans, their family members, their survivors. And this for us also is about putting in ways in which and continuing the transformation so we don't get there again. We don't want to get there again. Not every single employee that's working head down right now in every one of those regional offices out there, they want to be helpful to those heroes of this nation who have served so proudly.
Thank you. With that, I'll recognize Mr. Takano for his questions.
Thank you, Mr. Runyon. Undersecretary Hickey, the California Department of Veterans Affairs is beginning a new initiative to help clear the disability claims backlog. They're negotiating memorandum of understanding with our 3 regional offices to place 12 employees supplied by the state of California, the California VA. They're calling them strike forces, and they'll be dedicated to helping to clear the claims backlog. This is the first time that in our state that state employees will be able to integrate and help with these claims. As you know, Texas has employed a similar model, which has been very successful. It was based on that success that California developed this plan. Are you familiar with this model, and do you think it will be effective? Do you think other states should be looking to do the same?
So, Congressman, I am familiar with both models. Your leadership from the state of California came to see me last week, in fact, and laid it out. And I think if I could have jumped up from the table and hugged him, I would have. Just the phenomenal offer of support from the state of California and from the state of Texas. And frankly, we're all hands on deck, and we just think that's that's a great partnership and a demonstration of how every capability, every resource can be brought to bear. So I'm extraordinarily appreciative of what California is considering doing. Just as I am with the Texas Commission, just as I am, frankly, with every veteran service organization out there that does claims right alongside of us, who's every single day increasing the amount of fully developed claims that they're producing for us. And helping us to go gather all that evidence, which is, you can see it in our data, is clearly the long pole in the tent for us. So I think it's an extraordinarily good idea. We will make whatever provisions we need to make to accommodate that.
Well, along that last comment, I seem to recall it's not just the 12 new employees, but they're also proposing to do more outreach. They have developed a more extensive plan. And California is asked the VA to match some of the funds that California is putting up. Is that something the VA would consider doing? And do you have perhaps some funding already that you already control that could be possibly put forward for this purpose?
So, Congressman, one of the things, thank you for your question, one of the things that we are looking at in VBA that we have not done before, so I will tell you it's brand new territory for us, but we are looking at the idea of, is there a way to consider doing things in the grant world that partners with folks out there to help in this regard. We have not gotten very far on it, I will tell you that. I have people researching it right now. We don't even, frankly, have grant people in VBA, so I'm having to go into larger VA to gain some knowledge and understanding of that. So as we do that, I am happy to sit down and talk to you all and to this committee about our thoughts on that as we move forward.
Well, I'm certainly glad to hear that. I really want to applaud the people in Texas for what they've taken initiative on, and certainly in California, we're interested in expediting these claims and want to be part of the solution. And so I'm very proud that our state legislators and the state VA have taken an aggressive role here. And so I also hope to myself take a look at how the Texas model has worked.
Great. And Congressman, I will also acknowledge as well, they briefed me that you were also standing up a state academy to make sure that you have really well-trained people in the state, in your county service officers, your national service officer. You get a forced development opportunity for them as well. I think that's an exciting new
That's what I was referring to, the state academy. It's beyond our strike force. In addition to the strike forces of 12 for each regional offices, there was an additional academy, and I think that's what they were asking the matching funds for. And so if there's any way in which the VA can help us with that funding, we're not asking for an augmentation, but what you already have in terms of your funding, and perhaps other states could follow suit, or consortia states where there's regional offices that many belong to. This might be a way forward.
And Congressman, I know we have already committed people who do our training on a regular basis, our training curriculum as necessary, and other things just to get a head start on it. But I'm happy to look and talk to you about other possibilities.
My time has expired. Thank you so much.
Thank the gentleman. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Tennessee, Dr. Rowe.
Thank you. And I want to start by saying hallelujah, and all God's people said amen after 4.5 years. Can we have an amen from everybody? We finally got these 2-year plus claims. And I guess just a couple things, and I won't even take all of my time, but when the chairman first started, he asked about, I guess, why we were able to adjudicate these 2-year-old claims so quickly when they'd been waiting so long. And I think that begs the question. For 4 years I've been sitting here, and these claims got bigger and bigger. So now, but I'm very happy that they are. But how did that happen so quickly? I'm sure for veterans, they don't care. If they got their claim adjudicated, they're happy. I'm happy for them. But the question is, how can we look at them and say that after all this time?
So Congressman, I appreciate what you're saying, and an amen from me. as well. And let me tell you in general how claims can get old in our system. First, let's be honest, we touch 5,000 pieces of paper in a single year with little rubber fingertips on our fingers going through them, with mailroom people bringing them in, trying to get them into just millions, 4.4 million paper records in regional offices across
I've
the
been
country.
to Detroit and seen where they're deposited. I've seen all that.
It is really easy sometimes to lose one claim in there, or multiple claims, or even in 4.4 million records, it's easy to lose these pieces of paper. That is why it's so imperative we get into a paperless environment first. Okay. Second, one thing that does happen, and frankly, it's the case of our oldest claims in the inventory. We will, 20 years ago, the oldest case in the inventory, 20 years ago, long before most people who are in VBA even were in VBA, someone rated a case and missed something in the case. Then that veteran comes back 20 years later, and as a new rater is going through the case, they go, "Ruh-roh, there's something in here we should have done 20 years ago for that veteran." That's what the oldest case is about in our system. Rather than just kind of hide it and move away, we do the right thing, the integritous thing, and we say, nope, let's do it. They should have had it 20 years ago, and by the way, they should get all the back pay for that 20 years as well. And we're doing those today on a regular basis, and the checks that we cut for that back pay are fairly substantial.
There was some interesting information in our packet that I was able to read, and one is I don't think you'll ever hit the 120-day number if this continues. If it takes 112 days to develop when a claim for you, it's impossible. So, I guess first, why were the claims not being processed under the normal workload within the ROs? And then, and these were old claims sitting ready to be adjudicated because you clearly showed they were because you cleared them out in a month. So how many are sitting there right now ready to be adjudicated? And I know my time is short, but second, the nationwide average for awaiting development is 112.6 days. So you'll never get to the 120 days if it takes almost 120 days to develop where it even starts a process. You follow me?
Congressman, and the way we have done business in the past, I would absolutely unequivocally agree with you. What I will tell you, though, is under our new transformation effort, when a veteran goes online, files online through e-benefits like you all did your taxes here this last month, uploads their own evidence or uses, which I would highly recommend, a Veteran Service Organization officer to file their claim online and upload that evidence directly into the system right there in the Stakeholder Enterprise portal, you cut all of that awaiting development time down substantially. And then it goes directly into VBMS where somebody works it paperlessly from the beginning. We're also building in right now and building the requirements and getting ready to code automatic capability that helps to order some of the stuff we got to order so we don't have to wait to develop that case. It starts right away as soon as somebody submits a claim.
So we should see that go down with the electronic.
When we get all of this automation in place, in solid, in lock, we will. Right now today, we have the baseline VBMS. We have actually portal to decision built right now. It's all integrated. It comes through. In fact, I have 650 claims a week without even advertising it, except to talking to great people and great Americans like you in forums like this. We have 650 veterans a week that are coming in that way, in a paperless way, from e-benefits through VDC or the Stakeholder Enterprise portal, uploading their evidence and going directly into VBMS.
My time's expired, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the thousands of veterans out there that waited 2 years, I want to thank the VA for finally getting this done.
Thank the gentleman. The chair recognizes gentlelady from Arizona, Ms. Kirkpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Hickey, I applaud the efforts the VA has made to address the backlog issue. And I appreciate that you understand that more needs to be done because delayed care is denied care for our veterans. It seems we need to build a better system and we need to have better benchmarks and metrics in the system. After you made that announcement on April 19th, did you establish new metrics in the claims processing system for these backlog cases?
So thank you, Congresswoman, for the question. Let me tell you what we did. We went out and we collected up every single claim down to the eaches, the one digits, that fell into this category. We can identify those in our system. We made a list of all of those claims, including those claims that would roll into the 2-year category in the 2 months while we were doing this. So it's not even just the 2 years, it's those that would roll in. And we have managed that list at the highest level. Literally, I break into her conference room and there's people sitting around a table every day, constantly working that list down by regional office and making sure it's coming down by claim. Every single morning, we know how many we produced the day before, how many are now in the list today, what's that done in terms of that overall big number, and we literally are watching it tick down by the eaches. And so therefore, we know at what point we have hit the halfway point. So we're doing that every single day. With every single RO, managing the workload literally from a national perspective, which is the first time we have really ever done that in that kind of a massive lift.
And what about, have you established metrics with the Department of Defense in terms of transferring their records to the VA?
I'm working that right now. We're in discussions with DOD on transfer of different parts of information, and in some cases they transfer things relatively quickly. Part of my issue is it's not complete. And part of my requirement is to make the very best decision for that veteran, that family member, or that survivor with all the evidence there is in the DOD system. And not to have to recycle back in for a piece of data that may not seem important in the grand scheme of everything the DOD gives us, and they partner and give us a lot of data. But in the grand scheme of the decision and the ability to say yes to that veteran or no to that veteran, it makes all the difference in the world to us. I'm working closely and partnering closely with DOD to get that 100%, all the service treatment records, get every field we need on the personnel DD-214s or in the personnel system. All of that we are working on a day by day. I mean, it's literally, we are active engaged with DOD every day on these kinds of issues. They have committed to me on 1 June. They will give me the full and complete service treatment record where they will go do the exhaustive search on their side to get not only what's in their record, but to get all of the inpatient, outpatient, all of the TRICARE, all the contract medical records, everything related to that person's medical health, and bring it to the table. So we don't keep having to cycle and look for it. Still today, I have about 187,000 pieces of loose, late-flowing medical evidence. It could be a piece of paper that comes to us long after we have already made a decision on a veteran, so we then have to go cycle back through and open the case and see if we can make a different decision.
And I appreciate that June 1st deadline. My concern in terms of metrics is, what if they aren't able to do it on June 1st? Is there a consequence? What are they required to do then?
So my consequence discussion, or my accountability partner discussion with DOD is that when I get one that is not full and complete, I will send it back.
Okay. And again,
and then I will manage the time associated with getting it back and attributing that time to our partners, so that they have a way of sensing and knowing where they have their problems and how they can solve for that.
One last question on this. Does it make sense to have a certain time period, say 125 days, for the DOD to transfer records to you? A time frame, an exact time frame on every single case, so you can expect that?
So, Congresswoman, if they take 125 days to give me that, then I've already not met the 125 days that we have committed to by the Secretary. I need to have those records almost, immediately upon separation for a service member. In fact, if they can give them to me before separation, that's even better.
Okay, thank you.
Take the gentlelady for that, and with that, I recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Denham.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a strong belief that our biggest issue continues to be electronic records and having one system, an issue that goes back to the 80s when I was a young airman, still is not resolved yet today. Even after the Department of Defense Secretary has made it a mandate, the VA Secretary has made it a mandate, the President has made it a big issue, and yet we still do not have one system to be able to expedite these claims quickly. But we've talked about that ad nauseum. This committee, our members here, I think will focus on this in the appropriations process, as well as through legislation. We are making that a priority here, but I have one question as it relates to the claim specifically, and I want to concentrate on the claim development process and the extraordinary length of time it takes for the Veterans Benefits Administration to develop the initial claim. And I've got a chart here that states that the average number of days a veteran spends waiting initial development for a claim is 112.6 days, and that the claim will spend on average 221.8 days in evidence collection. I'm concerned that the Veterans Benefits Administration is not taking full advantage of the tools it has to cut down on the evidence collection period, specifically in regard to the use of private medical evidence through disability benefits questionnaires. With a questionnaire completed by a private physician, a claim could be developed without waiting to schedule oftentimes unnecessary VA medical exam. In a district like mine, a rural district, not only does it cost VA a great deal of money, but people in my district have to drive a couple of hours at a great deal of expense to themselves for a medical exam that could be done in Modesto. And so Congressman Walz and I recently introduced H.R. 1980, the Quicker Benefits Delivery Act, that will require the VBA to accept private medical evidence unless the Veteran Service Representatives and the Rating Service Representatives document why that information is not adequate. So what steps will you take to ensure that the VBA makes full use of private medical evidence to speed the claim development process?
Congressman, I appreciate your question. Actually gives us an opportunity to talk about the value to our veterans, to our process, to speed our process of private medical evidence and the use of disability benefit questionnaires. I've been pushing hard on it, to be perfectly honest. I know that right now today we have, VHA, the Health Administration partners, are doing, 1.5 million disability benefit questionnaires last year alone, and they're on target to hit the same number this year. But I only have about 15,000 of them coming in from private medical physicians. Two things.
Why?
One, I think, and we're doing something about this, and we'll have an answer. We'll have a better fix for this in the summertime. I think, frankly, it's a little easier for me to ask my VHA colleague to ask his people to do a disability benefit questionnaire that we put out there that we're trying to simplify and put it on a web portal so that it's easier to do. So I think, and we're getting there. That's coming this summer, where it does a nice job of, if you don't say yes here, you don't have to see the next 30 questions. You go directly to the ones you do have to answer. The second thing is we need to do, and so I appreciate what you all are thinking. We need to do a better job of educating our private physicians. We have reached out to people like the American Medical Association, to some of the other private organizations, to ask them, how can we reach a broader portfolio of physicians in the country? So I would ask for your help in that regard. I would ask for, in your states and in your communities, that if you could help me get that word out. I think.
Have you looked at this legislation yet that we've introduced?
I have heard of the legislation. I'm happy to look at it and provide technical assistance to it.
We would ask you to look at that, and we would ask what we can do to be helpful for our providers in our area. Somebody from Modesto ought to be able to go into one of our hospitals and expedite this for you.
I agree with you, Congressman. We want to minimize the amount of burden it puts on our veteran to get an exam. We've also done 2 other initiatives. We have a dozen regional offices out there right now. We just extended it to Waco in that pilot test, where we have contract providers who are calling private physicians and asking them for records and information from private physicians when the veteran tells us about a private physician. That has helped to reduce the days to collect evidence significantly in those places we're testing it, so we're looking at whether or not we can expand that to all. We are also doing something else called ACE, which is Acceptable Clinical Evidence, which means if you are already seeing a clinical physician at VHA, let's say you're seeing a cardiologist and you get the unfortunate news that your heart has degraded and it's not going to get better, I don't have to wait to do a compensation pension exam for you. You can ask your clinical doctor in VHA to do a DBQ and give it to me directly, and I can rate off of that and not even have to ask you to come in for another C&P exam.
Thank the gentleman. With that, recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first want to say to General Hickey and Undersecretary Rubens that I really appreciate your efforts, and I commend the seriousness and tenacity with which you're pursuing these very ambitious goals. And I think all of us on this committee have done a good job of reflecting the frustration and sometimes outrage that we're hearing in our district from the veterans that we represent. And I feel that you and General Shinseki, Secretary Shinseki, have heard that and are responding to it, and I really appreciate it. And I want to follow up on some of the questions and comments made by Mr. Denham in terms of fully developed claims. That's obviously the way to go, and it's going to help everyone involved to see better outcomes in the process. We also have a bill that we've filed, the Faster Filing Act, that will require the VA to publish the resolution times for different methods of filing a claim, and obviously with an incentive to get the VSOs and the veterans to file fully developed claims online. And so hope that we can work with you on that, and hope that bill becomes law. And even if it doesn't, these are things that the VA could choose to do on its own. Do you have a sense of the trajectory that these fully developed claims filed online are on? And you mentioned it earlier and I didn't catch it. What are the percentage now that are filed fully developed online?
I can get you the explicit numbers. What I can tell you, there's about 650 per week that are coming in the door, and that has been a steady tick up. But that's without us having, and we are about to go do a full up, marketing effort to help our veterans understand the benefits to them in that regard. But what I can do is I will try to give you a bit of a visual here, if I can talk with my hands like a former pilot for a moment. If I go and look at how we do a paper claim today, and I look at the overall amount of time it takes to do it, it looks something like this, a stack this big on a chart I have in my office. If I look at what it takes for a fully developed claim, it's 112 days. And to the points about the 112 days just to develop it in the other place, it's 112 days fully developed to completion. And if I look at it online, it's down in the 80-day range if it comes in and all the evidence is there and we can push it through the system online. That's where we are shooting for. That is why we are driving to this model. I can't get there till I get everybody on the system, all the paper out of the system, which we will do this year. We will get all the paper out of the system this year until I get into a full paperless environment. But I will tell you, we are driving that way, even including our transitioning service members in the current TAP program are going to be coming in line, learning how to file online, learning the benefit of the VDC process, being asked to bring their medical records, their personnel records with them. We'll have scanners and VSOs there and state directors and county service officers, whoever they need to help assist them with that. And they can be working with them with coffee in hand in the morning, at lunchtime, after work, in breaks, whatever it takes to help them file online at that point, so they come into that best model, that least day model right up front.
Do you have a target? You want X percent of claims filed fully developed online by this date, and these are the steps we're going to take to ensure that we get there, which will reduce our backlog by this amount. It seems like that's the best bang for the buck, the greatest value. You don't have to hire additional people to process those if you can get those filed fully developed.
So the fully developed claim target for this year is 20% of everything, and that's what we have asked our partners to help us with, and they are doing in many places some extraordinary jobs doing that. We have some who are doing 43% of their claims are bringing in the door. Our fully developed claims with our VSO partners doing it. That will be a huge benefit for those veterans that they represent. The second, so that's 20% this year. Next year we're shooting for 30%, and the year after we're shooting for 40%.
And a question that I asked Undersecretary Rubens earlier this week, do you have a means by which you can measure productivity within your workforce? You know, we measure it in the economy, within industries, companies measure it themselves. How do you know the productivity value of the workforce and the individual workers within the VA, and how are you measuring that?
So I think I would like us, since she's hands-on it in most ways, I will tell you we do have productivity measures we look at, but I think I would like to ask Secretary Rubens to answer that question.
Thank you, ma'am. Congressman, thank you for taking time to talk with us. As we discussed earlier, it is about looking at individual employees at individual regional offices against the number of claims that are coming out the door. There are two things that we're obviously looking at, is that overall, and then our ability to attribute that to the individual employee and the work that they're doing. As we move into the digital environment, we're looking forward to, I'm going to tell you, even better granularity is what I would call it, in terms of the level of effort they put into whether that's getting a claim developed or completing a rating decision, or that last piece of it, if you will, notifying the veteran that we've done those things. So we are continuing to build on what we've got today and looking forward to the opportunity that BBMS will allow us to get deeper into that look.
And my time has expired, but I'd love to follow up with you after this to find out specifically what those measures and numbers are for Waco. And I appreciate yours and General Hickey's responsiveness on our concerns about Waco. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Chair now recognizes the gentlelady from Indiana, Ms. Walorski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Undersecretary, it's good to see you. Thank you for being here. I have a question. There was a new report out this week by the Associated Press that 85,000 veterans are currently being treated for issues involving sexual violence and sexual abuse in the military. 4,000 of those are receiving disability claims right now while receiving PTSD treatment. My question is, how many of those claims are over 2 years old?
Congresswoman, I don't know. I don't want to explicitly say none because I don't know the answer to that. So I will find out that answer and take it and get it right back to you so that you know. I will tell you that we handle those claims in our special operations lane with very specifically trained people. They're the only ones allowed to touch them. I will tell you, since I arrived, I have cleaned up a problem that existed before my arrival, which we were not going far enough with those claims to get exams done for those victims of military sexual trauma. We have cleaned that up as of June of 12. We are now on par for how we grant those cases, those PTSD due to military sexual trauma cases, with other PTSD claims. And I am especially sensitive to this community of men and women who have endured things they should never have to endure in the service of, to their country.
And what evidence is required at this point today, after you cleaned up the issue, what evidence is required to prove disability due to sexual violence?
It is singularly the lowest threshold of evidence that we have on the books today.
What is the evidence?
You can tell somebody, your friend, your roommate, you can have had gone to sick call the next day that can look like, you know, and even if you didn't go for that, even if you didn't tell a soul, you can have missed 3 days of work. You could have your performance degraded over time. You could have just about anything you can think of that you can give us literally we're accepting just about anything that shows there was some impact that gives us at least a subtle marker of some kind.
And how many veterans are receiving disability now today due to sexual violence?
Somewhere around 4,000.
And do you have an idea of when you can get back to me on the number of claims that are 2 years old? Do we have a timeline?
We will do that within the next 2 days.
Great. Thank you very much. I yield back my time.
Thank you. With that, I'll recognize the gentlelady from California, Mrs. Brownlee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I wanted to second Mr. Decano's questioning about California and its desire to move to a more successful model with these strike teams in the academy and so forth and so on. I had a similar discussion with our secretary there, and it sounds like it's certainly a good pathway for us to make some much needed improvements, which, you know, brings me to certainly the Monday morning workload report that we receive, and certainly that that report highlights some of the problems I believe that exist in California with both Los Angeles and Oakland, the regional centers there having some of the worst, I think, performance in the country vis-a-vis wait times, etc. So I wanted to know what the VA is doing relative to looking at allocating of staffing resources among the VA offices, and with Los Angeles and Oakland both being poor performers, is there adequate and equitable staffing there and to deal with the backlog because their numbers are so much greater than, say, for example, Sioux Falls, which, the average days pending there are 84, where Los Angeles is 374 and Oakland is 424 days.
So, Congresswoman, thank you for your question, and thank you for the support as well of the California initiative. That will be very helpful to us, and I look forward to that relationship and that partnership together to meet the needs of California state veterans and their family members and survivors better. Let me first start. I think you had about 3 or 4 in there, so I'm going to try to tick down. And if I miss one, please let me know. First of all, we wanted everyone to know that as we do these oldest claims, you will absolutely unequivocally see our average days to complete go up in those Monday morning workload reports. It has to happen mathematically and statistically. As soon as you do an old claim, it hits that number because it's a historical look, not a prospective look, not a future look. And that said, ADP is coming down across the nation as we get these old claims done and we can get to a younger population of inventory. Next, you had asked about the allocation model. I think it was actually almost now coming up on a year ago, well, October of last year, that we actually put more people into both Oakland and into LA, more allocations into both sites. Why? Because I looked at how, generations ago, VBA's allocation model was not necessarily built on demand, or demand has shifted to where veterans have gone to live. And so we need to do something to rewind, look at those levers, look at that allocation model, and we are in the middle of doing that right now. But in the meantime, I said we needed to get more capability into both LA and into Oakland as well, and we have done that. The other thing we have done is we did do that station enhancement training in both sites, and in both sites we have definitely seen an increase in their quality and in their productivity. So we will keep monitoring, keep tracking that as well, and I know that we are moving forward in that regard. I think I got to all your questions, but if I did not, Congresswoman, please let me know.
I think you did, and I'd just like to actually follow up again on that Monday morning workload report, which I find helpful, but it's still unclear to me, for example, how many claims the Los Angeles office received this year and how many claims it has completed. I think this information would be helpful in that report so we can really track the progress in greater detail.
Congresswoman, we're happy to provide you that information.
Thank you very much. And I'm finished.
Thank the gentlelady. With that, I'll recognize the gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Winstrup.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for being here today. Ms. Rubens, you mentioned productivity measures, and you may be able to get better productivity measures as things become more electronic, which would certainly make sense. Will pay be based on productivity for the employees processing claims?
Sir, the pay system within the federal government is based on our general schedule. We obviously, if there's an interest in having us look at that, we can talk about it, but we are part of the overall federal government, and so as we look at the grade structure of the duties performed by our veteran service representatives, by our rating veteran service representatives, that's driven by the Office of Personnel Management personnel system.
Well, I'd be curious to know your opinion on that, because sometimes it seems to me, I'm impressed that we have had this increase in claims process, but I wonder where the motivation comes from for the individual employees, and so that's why I question, is it pay-based or can it be? because I think it's hard to motivate people sometimes if there's not some reward for outstanding work, as opposed to others that may be falling behind. General Hickey, you mentioned obviously that the old claims are being taken care of. So of course with that immediately my office was hit with the question, well, what about the new claims? You know, are those being forgotten? Could you comment on where we are with new claims?
So thank you, Congressman, for your question, and let me just tell you where we are doing new claims. If you fall into one of those priority groups, I don't care whether you're a minute old in our system, where you are considered a priority, which is any veteran who is seriously injured, ill and injured, or very seriously ill and injured, immediately in the priority bucket. Any Medal of Honor recipient, former prisoner of war, any veteran who is facing extreme financial hardship, they're about to lose their home or their ability to eat, you know, things like that. Any veteran who is terminally ill. We want to know that so we can expedite that claim right away. And we're also doing fully developed claims. Yes, it's an incentive. So you were talking about incentives before. We want to incentivize new behavior that drives us to that faster process. So we are prioritizing fully developed claims, and they can be brand new ones that just came in the door. The other thing I will tell you is we continue to do, and we have not taken away any capability for that, our benefits delivery at discharge, our BDD, and our quick start claims. And I will tell you the good news about those. We have cut the inventory of those nearly in half. We have gotten many days off of veterans who are waiting specifically quick start for mostly our National Guard and Reserve folks that use that one. Cut our waiting days in half. So we're doing much better in those two environments. Those continue. Those veterans who are coming through the wounded, ill and injured process called IDES, or the Integrated Disability Evaluation System, that's a very specific process. We're not touching any capability in that process. That is being fenced and cared for as well. So all of those ways are ways for us to do new claims in the system today.
Thank you very much. What about those that have VA loans and maybe are about to foreclose because they're waiting on their claim?
So there are no VA home loan waiting. That's a different claim process. These that I've been talking about are one of the other 6 business lines, our compensation claims. We actually have a really good news story to tell on our VA home loan program. In fact, I will tell you over the last 5 years, we have kept more than 290,000 families, not even individuals, families of service members, because we do VA loans for service members as well, veterans, their family members and survivors in their homes by the way in which we do VA home loans, and we have avoided about a $9 billion hit to the Treasury during one of this country's biggest foreclosure environments. So we actually do our VA home loans very quickly, and in that very quickly, part of the reason we can, we're paperless. We built a paperless IT system that looks a little bit like the early versions of the new early versions of VBMS, because it had the identical same program manager when we first started building VBMS. He took his lessons from building we call it Valerie in the VA home loan program, on how to do things in a paperless environment with your stakeholders like mortgage lenders and providers. And he brought that lesson learned over into how do we start building VBMS. He's now actually a regional office director in New Orleans, Louisiana, where he's implementing all the things that we have done.
Thank you. And just very quickly, how do you feel we're going as far as making things more seamless electronically, for example, from going from DOD to VA?
We continue to work with our partners in DOD. It's a critical partnership for us. You know, the Secretary is often quoted saying what we do in VA largely does not start in VA. It starts, you know, in their service. It's the nature of that. So we continue to work at that, and we get better agreements and processes as we do. The next really big one comes 1 June when the DOD gives me that fully certified 100% complete service treatment record that includes all the records, including TRICARE contract records, inpatient, outpatient, anything that had to do with the medical readiness, medical history of that veteran in that record, and they give it to me telling me that they have fully exhausted that search. That's a big lift for them to do. I appreciate it very much. It's a good partnership role for them to have for us, rather than us try to go backwards into their system and go hunt down and find something in their system. It just makes more sense. They own that service member and that medical readiness while they're in service. Giving us everything they have is important to do.
Thank you very much. My time's expired.
Thank the gentleman. With that, Chair recognizes the gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Brown.
Thank you. I was a little late today because I was attending the Women's Memorial Service at the Wall, and I brought the T-shirt to prove it. I bought it. And the point is that I'm reminded of the words of the first President of the United States, George Washington. The words are worth repeating at this time. The willingness with which our young people are likely to serve in any war, no matter how justifiable, should be directly proportionate as to how they perceive that the veterans of early wars are treated and appreciated by their country. So as we go out this Memorial Day, I am hoping that we can give, and you really have given a lot of positive updates. I want it in writing so I can hand it out at the programs that I will be attending on Monday. I was recently in LA, and I will be back out there next week with my transportation committee, but I will definitely go and visit once again the Veterans Facility, because I am very upset that the federal government built 4 facilities, which is 400 units, and the state of California, they're just sitting there, not operational. 4 brand new facilities. And I would like an update on, and it was for the homeless or for the veterans to be in these facilities, is at the VA facility, 4 units. I am very pleased with the progress. It's only a month that we're taking care of all of the prior people that had a long list of not being processed. So can you expound on that a little more? I know that maybe the other members heard what you had to say, but I need to hear it so I can convey it to my community.
Absolutely. Thank you, Congresswoman, for your question. I will take for the record your question about the 4 facilities back to VA for the VHA side of the organization. But I will just synopsize where we are on doing the oldest claims. We started on 19 April. We had 67,000 in the category because we also counted anything that would age over 2 years while we were going through the 60-day process. We have completed 51.4% of those, meaning more than half of those. 95% of them, we didn't even have to use the provisional rating. We got all the data, all the effort that we needed to go ahead and make a final decision. Those claims, in terms of grant denial rates, about 70%, which is on par with our normal grant denial rate, so we're doing them at a high level. And I will also tell you my April, since we started this April, my April quality results are showing that first time ever we have crossed the 90% category for our quality, claim quality across the nation. That's an indicator of the investment you all have made and supported us in terms of the training we needed to do for our people. And LA has gone through that new station enhancement training, so I would appreciate your feedback on what you're seeing out there as well. What I'm saying is we are on track, in fact, just a smidge ahead of time. We're working closely. Our VHA counterparts are all in on this one as well. They are working to get the exams we need as rapidly as possible. Our VSOs are out there helping us too, going out and helping us find things, working with that veteran. So we're just extraordinarily appreciative of the all hands on deck approach everybody's taking to do this.
Thank you very much. And in our last meeting, I was impressed with how you turned this around.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Thank you. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, gentlelady. With that, I recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Hickey and Secretary Ribbons, thank you for joining us today. Just one comment. First of all, I appreciate your initiative to try to address these claims, and my hope is the same as yours, that it doesn't impact the other claims that don't fall within the category that's getting the extra help. Just as a note for you, my Texas colleague, Mr. O'Rourke, and I sent a letter to you back on May the 6th regarding the Waco Varro. We had some questions and a request for a meeting. I'd like you to follow up on that if you get a chance, and hopefully in the near future. My first question is, by the way, with respect to Waco, I want to say this. Thank you for the new director that we received a little over a year ago. I think he has made a difference, and he is helping Texas veterans get the care they need. Also, with respect to the Waco Borough, thank you for working with the Texas Veterans Commission on our strike force program. It does seem like it is making a difference. And lastly, with respect to Waco, thank you for the implementation of VBS. Now, I don't know if it's made a difference yet, but Director Lempos in Waco knows I'll be sitting down with him every 3 to 6 months to follow up with how things are going there. The first question is, this has to do with your press release and letter you issued back in April. You gave a self-imposed deadline of 60 days, and now that deadline is approaching. But and in that letter you said 3 things. 1, no issues shall be deferred on a rating document. Number 2, all 2-year-old claims will be processed within 60 days. And number 3, the following evidence must be of record and to include service treatment records for original claims, VA medical records, evidence to establish service dates, and VA exams required to issue a decision, with emphasis on the last part. And so we're aware that, I mean, because we're at that, we're getting within the window when that 60-day period is going to extend, and some VA exams have not been scheduled, it's going to be tough to make that date. And because of that, some RVSRs have been told that any new VA exam request will have a negative impact on your goal for a 60-day completion. And because those VA exam requests are being scheduled beyond the 60-day deadline, VBA employees are being directed to move forward with the evidence on file without the necessary VA exams. And so it does seem like the directions that are being issued in the field per se are not in accordance with the directions that you've issued. So can you check on this and get back to us to make sure that these claims are still being adjudicated uniformly and within VA guidance?
Congressman, I will definitely check on anything you all ever believe that you're seeing or hearing out there. Absolutely. I will say, though, that VHA exams, we are literally, just as we are in overtime, the VHA exam units have also had their doctors working overtime. They are doing Saturday and Sunday CMP exams if necessary. They are also deploying doctors to places where we have a large concentration if we think that there may be more than can be done by the existing workforce there. They are in all hands on deck to be making sure there are enough exam capabilities across the system. The other thing we have leveraged largely is we both have contract exams through the CMP functions. VBA has those in certain places. Thank you to this committee for that provision. So does VHA has a national exam capability. So they're leveraging that capability as well to increase the output from those environments as well. So we are using every possible resource, and we're putting the resources in the right place where that veteran is to ensure that we get those exams done.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that the healthcare side is working with you, and I do appreciate your initiative to reach out and use private providers as well. I think those are both going to be very integral to helping our veterans. Next question I have is more of a macro question. With any organization, your key inputs that you need to be successful are people. You need to have manpower, that's the people, but you need to have capital or the funding. You need to have systems, and then you need to set the right culture. Pretty much everything VA has asked for with respect to people and systems and funding has been granted. So based on my visits with different boroughs around the country, and I've seen some really great ones like Muskogee, it seems like the culture still varies a lot. And as you sort of dig into the weeds, it seems like the biggest cultural issue we have is that in any given borough, you'll have an underperforming group of people that you can't seem to get turned around in terms of performance, or alternatively get rid of them. And so my question is this: what can we as a committee, what can we as a Congress do to help you deal with these low performers that just aren't going to get it and that aren't going to provide the proper level of service to our veterans, so that we can make way for people who will, so that you can get the culture, get a Muskogee culture essentially throughout every borough in the country.
So Congressman, I have actually visited now, and got another couple coming up here in the next few weeks. I think more than 38 of our regional offices across the country in less than 2 years. Here's what I see when I walk in there, and I have straight up conversations with these folks and look them right in the eyeballs, and I see people who care. They are not there because it's a job. In fact, I literally ask this question, how many of you are veterans? And I see the 52 to, well, some ROs more than that veteran hands go up. And then I say, okay, put your hands down. How many of you are a direct family member of a veteran? Almost the entire room is covered, maybe one or two that are not, not having a passion for doing this mission because it's the right thing to do. The first thing I have to figure out in those places where we have performance issues, and our employees deserve this, is whether or not we trained them right. If we did not train them right, then it's not bad on them, it's bad on us. So that's why we have been extensively focused on the new challenge training model, to make sure we have the right training for our people, because I can't expect them to do something if they've never been trained really well how to do it. So we have been very, very focused on that. And then beyond that, there is a process. It doesn't just exist in federal government. It existed for me when I was in the private sector as well. And it's a performance improvement process where we literally sit supervisor to employees experiencing a performance problem, and we make a written plan with milestones and performance expectations, and we work that plan to get that person's performance up. I want to get them in a better place and still working for us.
We all
they
want
have
to be
a passion for this
successful.
mission.
I agree.
So the third thing we're doing, frankly, is in VBMS, we are giving them tools so they don't have to remember everything in their heads from a book that's stacked this big full of rules built from years and years of court decisions and years of laws and years of all those kinds of different things, and regulation on our part to accommodate those things. So right now what we have done is we've taken that rule basis and we have put it and built it into the system so it queries them. It helps them remember, I got to do this, then this, then this. Push this radio button. Try to submit. It's not going to let you submit unless you go do this and this and this. So we're helping with some of that performance issue inside the system to get the system to aid in a consistent answer, in a consistent process all the time. And we are seeing benefits of that. I think the fact that we have, for the first time in April, hit over a 90% threshold on our national claims level quality and our medical issue quality at 95.6% now across the nation, tells me that's working. Will we have outliers? Everyone, everywhere has a bell curve. And we will. We're going to work hard to keep that employee if we can. If we can't, then we will figure out the next steps.
Let us know we can be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one quick question before we move on, and it kind of raises a flag. And when we talk about, obviously, an example like this of fast tracking, and we have many other examples of it in the system, within this initiative of the 2 years claim fast tracking, are we at a point where these files are being adjudicated randomly, or whether it's by procedure or human nature, are we just getting the easiest ones out of the way first?
So, Chairman Ronian, thank you for the question. I'll tell you, absolutely not. It's actually 180% the other direction. We are clearly doing the ones that have been hardest, have taken the most, that are the oldest. We're not grabbing and running and doing the fastest and easiest ones first, unless they fall in one of those priority categories that I mentioned before. I don't think you want me to tick through them again, but I would if you want me to. The ones where they might still have something easy would be a fully developed claim. Those become easier to do, and those do go down our express lane, as I have committed to our VSOs to do. We have done 67,000 claims in that express lane, an FTC claim in that express lane in 112 days in total. So no, in fact, if anything, we are grabbing a hold in a strong, heavy case management way, those that have lingered the longest and have been the hardest to do.
I just raised that because obviously the numbers in this program are impressive as this far, and you're halfway through it. So there is a deadline that you've self-imposed out there, so I was just wanted to clarify that. So with that, I'll recognize the gentlelady from California, Ms. McLeod.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify something. California doesn't have 4 homes that are built that are not open. It's 2. One in Redding, one in Fresno. And am I not right, Secretary Hickey, that the federal government pays for the building of the homes, but then the state has to pay for the running? And because recently California had a very large fiscal problem, that the homes were built, but they hadn't been open, but it's my assurance that they will be open in October or November.
Congresswoman, I wished I could answer your question, but unfortunately that is not one of the business lines I do.
That I do know that, having come from California just recently and having served on the subcommittee that was actually dealing with the veterans' homes were built, only 2, one in Redding, one in Fresno. They were held out from opening. They were completed, but because of the fiscal crunch in California, they were held out from opening. They will be open in October or November, and I was assured by the Secretary of the Veterans Service in California.
Congressman, I will still get the request for both on that subject.
To clarify, would you yield to me? I would hate to disagree with you, but I went out there. It's 4 brand new units in L.A. I personally went there, sitting there, that was built with federal taxpayers' money, but the state of California did not have money to operate it. These 4, which is, there are 4 units, but it's 400, I guess, rooms or whatever that's available, brand new, just sitting there. And the only reason why I raise it is because it should be a system in place where the federal and the state can work together, because it's been sitting there over 2 years. I understand we're in a fiscal crisis, but those veterans that could use those facilities are in a much harder crisis.
No. I guess you don't want to colloquy, so I'll just...
Gentlelady yields back. With that, recognized gentleman from Nevada, Mr. Hamadeh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Hickey, it's my understanding from talking with a physician in my district recently that the coding that's used when you talk about records in the adjudication process, that the coding model, and that may not be the right phrase, that is used, whether you're a private physician or whatever, is 1940s vintage. Is that in the ballpark in terms of diagnoses or whatever? And he said it in the context of, it's hard for a physician in 2013 or 2012 or whatever, when they're writing stuff for VA, to have to try to make it fit with a 40s vintage coding model. And if that's true, and if it's not, just say, hey, it's not true, and I'll accept that. But if it is true, then what's being done to kind of bring us up to the point where everybody's talking the same medical language?
Congressman, I appreciate your question, and also the visit that you had with our staff this week as well, to learn more about what we're doing in Nevada as well. I have a limited knowledge on this, but I will share with you what I know. There are 2 different sort of diagnostic code processes, and I think this is what you're addressing. One the VA uses, and one that sort of private medical folks use. It's my understanding that there's an effort ongoing to see if they can map those 2 kinds of things together to facilitate a common understanding of those different diagnostic codes. Beyond that, I will have to take the rest for the record, and I'm happy to do so to get you an answer.
Okay, thank you. Also, the mandatory overtime for claims is obviously something that's out there on the record. Before that decision was made, was there any cost-benefit analysis done, mandatory overtime? And I'd be curious as to what the projected cost for that is. I think it's supposed to run for a specific time. Mr. Tucano and some of the Texas folks said, that they had strike teams there and were looking for resources. Was there any cost-benefit analysis done to mandatory overtime versus, giving money to those states with task forces or something else, other than just saying, hey, guess what, we're all going to turn out, all hands on deck for a little bit longer?
Congressman, we have actually long used overtime as a significant quiver in our arrow in our quiver. We last year were for a period of time, albeit a shorter period of time, in mandatory overtime for compensation claims folks. We have also, until recently, with the automation that arrived, thankfully, in September 24th of last year, that allowed us to get the education claims inventory down significantly to the point where we're doing a bulk of that work in about 5 days. We used to have to put our education claims processors in mandatory overtime, not for a short period of time, but for almost 3/4 of the year. The reason why it's a good use of that resource is because it takes about 2 years to get someone to a journey level capability to be able to adjudicate these cases. And thanks to Chairman Miller's holding of the roundtable last week, we had the opportunity to talk to some industry partners who also shared with us it takes them about the same amount of time, 18 months to 2 years, to get someone to adjudicate these kinds of claims. So it is the best, albeit I'm asking a lot from our employees, but we have tried to do it in a way that's sensitive to the fact that they can't just burn straight till the end of the fiscal year. They have to have a moment of reprieve to catch their breath, to spend a little time with family vacation time. So we have allowed in the process some flexibility, actually have provided in the process some flexibility for those 20 hours a month, including electing a month where you do not have to do that mandatory overtime.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm down to about a minute. I didn't hear a lot about cost-benefit analysis. I do appreciate the historical data, though. And finally, when you talk about resource allocation model, and I was interested to hear that my colleagues from the Golden State, Mrs. Brownlee, and that talking about L.A. and Oakland, but unfortunately, the only regional office that serves the state of Nevada is one that's gained some distinction lately, and I appreciate you making your staff and Ms. Rubens available, and look forward to working with you. But when I look at that office and see that resources have been cut in terms of personnel and budget, I just want to say I look forward to you visiting the office. I look forward to hearing what you think after you've got that visit under your belt. But I still find it very curious that resources are being cut in an office which in some way leads the nation in ways that we don't want to. And so I look forward to talking with you after you've visited Reno, because my time's up and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the gentleman for that. Recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Cook.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, a lot of ground has been covered, and I'm happy to see some of the improvements that have been made in this thing. And full disclosure, I'm probably the most cynical member of this committee in terms of the VA and the VA claims. I still have a problem with the continual use of acronyms on everything. It's part of the culture that we were talking about. I have problems talking about metrics and all these other buzzwords. You got to have words that the veterans understand. Forget the rest of this other stuff. They want to know the straight scoop. You know, I'm just a dumb Marine. General, I'm not as smart as you or anything like that. But I am tired of the runarounds that get there. Now, I hear it takes 2 years to train somebody. 2 years. It takes 10 weeks to train a Marine, a soldier, or what have you, and that might vary for the most important job that they have, and that is to close with and destroy the enemy. Maybe we should have 2 years to train them. That is far more important. Now, I get very excited about this, and I have to apologize. And I appreciate that you're visiting those organizations. And I have to ask you, do they know you're coming in advance? Because if you look at the history of what has happened, if I was in charge, I'm sorry, I'd show up at 1400 in the afternoon and say, you know, I'm Cook. Here's my Social Security number. Run it on me. What's going on? And I am very, very happy that attention is being paid, and part of it is because of this committee. And I'm just afraid that after this is over, we're going to go back in the same rut where, you know, the claims get slower and slower. And once again, you we get back in this culture. So I'm trying to believe this, and I apologize for being so aggressive. I've had too much coffee this morning, and I'm late for a committee, and all those things. But all I'm saying is the veterans, they just want the straight scoop. They don't want all these big buzzwords. They don't want the acronyms. They just just let them know what's going on, what their expectations are. They are I think they're the easiest patients in the world. I really do. And they go down there and they wait and they wait and they wait and then they come back in another few months and this and that. And as I said, I'm part of the Vietnam generation, and a lot of us have just given up on the system. And this is terrible. A lot of them have just ripped up their claims and they say, no one really cares. And I think the other thing you have to address is how many of these people have dropped out and said because of all the abuses that have happened maybe the last decade or even longer, they just have no faith. So I appreciate what you're doing. I think we've got to almost rejoin or get these people back in there. And all I'm asking is the language that we communicate, forget the medical terms and use the terms that they understand. And I would ask your help on it. And I'm very, very happy that you're making progress on this. And I'm sorry I'm so animated this morning.
Well, Congressman, I appreciate, your service to this country, and I love Marines, so thank you for your service as a Marine. You're
as a secretary, you're still going to invite me back to breakfast after my last...
Absolutely, Congressman. I don't even have to ask him that question. Absolutely. Let me just, I want to pick up on what you're talking about. The staff in and around me, as we are writing things and doing things, here's two things for me. Quit talking in lawyer talk and get rid of the gobbledygook. And those are my big fancy words for exactly what you just said, which is let us just in very simple, straightforward language tell a veteran what we need to tell them. So I'm actually happy that you raised that question. I have been working hard to push the gobbledygook out of the system. That is a culture change. It is a culture change when you have court cases pushing on you and everybody wants to make sure everything's got the lawyer language protection around it or the medical jargon protection around it. But we have to stop doing that. So I'm all on board with your idea.
Thank you, gentlemen. With that, recognize gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Kaufman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Secretary Hickey. First of all, thank you so much for your service to the United States Army and now your service in the Veterans Administration. You mentioned, I think, in the complexity, and I think there is extraordinary complexity in the claims process, and I think you mentioned that taking 2 years to bring somebody up to speed in terms of to process claims, to be effective in terms of processing claims, to do that training. And so one thing, I guess, one of my questions is, do people specialize in a given, are there people that just only do PTSD or only do Agent Orange or only do physical wounds such as amputations?
Congressman, you're headed right where we're headed, which is when we are all in an electronic environment, when we can share a claim, no matter where you sit in the country, and we can say, for the 6 medical issues you have inside that claim, let's get the group of people who do PTSD best to do your PTSD. Let's get the group of people who do TBI best to do TBI. Let's get the people, you can start now saying inside that claim, let's apply a human capital filter to that and say, who are the best people in demonstrated performance to do those kinds of medical issues? You're going exactly where we're trying to go.
Thank you. I would encourage you to start making that movement now, simply because of the fact that, to have teams that are already specialized, even though you're transitioning from paper to electronic, not to wait in that process. What I found when I was state treasurer for Colorado, I looked at the court system in terms of, I think I used the state of Delaware as an example, that they had done a business court, set up a business court with a court process that only looked at business cases. commercial, and I think they called it the commercial court or something like that. And so we looked at replicating that in Colorado. And in Colorado, what we found was we only had specialty courts for water issues and nothing else. And so the studies that I looked at nationally in terms of adjudicating cases in terms of civil procedure was that cases moved, when there were specialty courts, cases moved along faster, and that the results were more uniform. Not only did they move along faster, but there was less variance in terms of the results. And I think it's very important to develop that specialty now within the Veterans Administration, to say that we're going to develop this expertise in Agent Orange, we're going to develop this expertise in PTSD, in other areas. And I think that the training will move along faster, the expertise will be developed sooner, and I think the results will be more predictive if in fact we start the process of specializing these claims personnel now and not waiting until we've gained the electronic capability. There's no question that when you gain that capability of just doing things electronically, that it will be easier, that you will even be in fact more efficient and more able to exploit specialization. But I think that the claims are large enough where you can do it now, and it will make a difference now.
So, Congressman, thank you for your insight on that. It's very helpful. And in fact, I will correct something I just said a moment ago. We have actually already started that segmentation. We have one of the 3 lanes is a special operations claim lane, that there are only certain kinds of very complex medical conditions that can go down that lane, and they are specialized to those very senior journey level people who can do them well. So, for instance, Parkinson's goes down that lane, diabetes goes down that lane, things that have lots of inferred, or now I'm using a medical term I promised I wouldn't do, things that have, you claim one thing, but you can have lots of things wrong with you associated with that, from like a diabetes. You have your foot problem and your blood sugar problem and your head problem and, whatever it is. Those kinds of complex claims do now go down our special operations lane, and people are trained specifically against those kinds of claims.
Well, I want to suggest for post-traumatic stress disorder, because that is I'm an Iraq War veteran, and I think that's a huge issue for Iraq and Afghanistan veterans, and it's a big piece of the backlog that we have right now. And so I really think that, and I think it does require a certain specialization, that there ought to be a cadre of personnel that are solely focused on post-traumatic stress disorder, and that's their specialty and that's their focus, and moving those cases along. I just think that would make the system more efficient. That would make the adjudication of these decisions much more predictable than they are today.
Thank you, Congressman.
I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the gentleman. I again have another question before I go to Dr. Benishek. It's an issue of concern. It's been brought to the committee's attention that if the VA can rate the file with a service connection in it as it is, there's not an exam being ordered, which potentially could increase the rating. Is there any truth to that?
I'm going to need to clarify the question again. I'm sorry, with a lot of movement by my ear, I just missed a few words. I'm sorry, Chair.
You're rating a 2-year file, and there's evidence of service connection disability in it. And we're talking about not ordering an exam which is normal procedure, to potentially increase that claim. Is that happening, that they're not ordering the exam? Obviously, there's evidence of service connection, but there's potential that there could be an increased benefit.
So I'm going to say what I'll say, and then I'm going to ask Ms. Rubens see if she can get to your issue even better than I will try to. The way we are doing these today is you have to have a minimum of your service treatment records in order for us to do those, and character and nature of service, obviously. And the exam, if the exam is required, then we will do those as well. And we are expediting those in lots of numbers with lots of all hands on deck out there. So I'm not sure I get to the nuance, but I'll ask Ms. Rubens if she does.
General Hickey, I think you've hit the point. Chairman Runyon, I'm not sure if you're referring to some of the concerns that we've heard mentioned today that we are obviously going to go back and follow up on to ensure we are ordering those exams. We've worked with VHA. General Hickey enumerated all of the efforts that they're putting to this as well. I would add to that one other thing, and that's that they have committed to having medical doctors in each of our regional offices to work with us, so that if one of those other things won't do it, we have an opportunity to look at the evidence that we have. If we still require an exam, the guidance is order the exam.
Well, I think my issue is a change in that exam as it's been sitting in that file for 2 years. Do you see what I'm saying? That of not ordering another one to potentially have a change in.
I think if the case is that the medical exam is stale, if that's what you're asking, Chairman, will we order another medical exam?
Yes,
Is that what you're asking?
for potential of an increased rating at that point. You have evidence there, but it's obviously been sitting and not being adjudicated over a period of time.
I will get that. I will find out explicitly for you what that specific guidance is and whether we even have a problem there. I don't know that we even have a problem there. But I will come back, and I'm glad that Secretary Rubens made the comment. But we also, as a focus of doing these right and well, we asked our VHA partners to position a full-time position in each of the regional offices, depending on the workload. There's some that are very small and they can't give them enough to do, but there are many of them that are now in regional offices, every single day, and they are there for a rater or a VSR to come up quickly to them on the spot and say, I need a medical opinion on this. I need, something of that nature where we can get immediate access just in time to be able to grant that condition if we can. And that is our motto: grant if we can and deny only if we must.
I'm just more worried about the evidence you would need to increase a rating. That's my concern on this one. And our concern is that a follow-up exam is not being ordered. You see where I'm coming from? You have evidence there. There's potential that there could be an increase in benefit if another exam was ordered. I'm just wondering about procedure there.
Chairman, I'll go look at the issue and try to get a little better information for you to give you a better response. I know we're obviously not scratching that itch for you yet, so we will go back and look and see if we can figure out how to get to your concern.
I appreciate that. With that, recognize Dr. Benishek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
I was kind of curious about the 60-day effort to clean up cases over 2 years of age, and I was happy to hear you say that you're on time in your 60-day window. Would you please report to myself and the committee? It looks like it's going to be June 19th is the date, from what I can understand. That's the end of the 60 days. So I would like to actually hear what your success rate is at that time and what percentage of them are provisional ratings versus the final ratings, because I'm skeptical a lot of the times of we're going to have this done in 30 days. You know what I mean? I hear that all the time, and it's a little frustrating to me. So I'd like to get that report at the end of June, then, what your actual success rate is in getting that done. I know there's been criticism about how you're doing it and everything. And I don't know. I think if you tried something, and if you can actually accomplish it in the 60 days, I think that will be a laudable goal. Well, I just want to follow up on something that we talked about earlier. And that was the performance review for personnel that don't seem to be meeting their productivity standards. And you mentioned the teaching, the training for making sure that 2 years it takes to train some of these individuals, and I kind of agree with Mr. Cook that that does seem to be a long time to get somebody trained in there. But I can accept that, but I can't accept the fact that somebody's not performing, and I'd just like to know how many people in the, you don't have to know the names, I don't imagine, but how many people are actually getting performance reviews in your department? Is there a percentage? I mean, how many cases of performance review actually somebody had a review in their file in the last 60 days? Do you know anything about that number?
So Congressman, I don't know the number for I think you're asking me about the performance improvement plans, or the PIPs as they are called.
Right.
I don't have those numbers immediately available to me, but I do know that they are used, and they're, used as a way but successfully graduated from in a lot of times as well. When we put somebody on a performance improvement plan, this is my experience in industry as well. It's my desire to do that in order to improve your performance.
Well, exactly, and I understand that, and I hear that, but I don't know if it is actually happening. You know what I mean? How many employees are under case managers or case? How many employees do you have doing that?
So we have 6 different business lines in VBA. And in the compensation line, we have, for people directly touching a claim, it's about 10,000 people.
So 10,000 people. So could you maybe come up with a number, or actually give me a relatively accurate number as how many people have gotten a performance review in the last 60 days out of that 10,000?
Congressman, I appreciate the question. I don't have the specific number with me, but I can assure you that we look regularly at the number of employees that we've got on performance improvement plans. We'll come back to you with the information, and particularly around those 10,000 that are working claims in the last 60 days. How many have been on a performance improvement plan, and where we are today with those.
Yeah, I would appreciate that, please, because
Absolutely.
I'm concerned about the fact that there's not enough performance, and there's not enough review of performance in the management of the VA, because I've had this experience where I'm going to do something and yet it doesn't get done, and I just don't like to hear that answer.
So, Congressman, one of the things that we have done in the nature of looking at our business and our work a little differently is I have recoded the system that allows me to look in the performance system for our employee, a system called Aspen, and I don't know what it stands for, but it's the system there. They log what they're doing, and the system keeps track of all that. We have created a way to look at not just claim level quality and things of that nature, but we have a way now of looking at the individual medical issue level quality that we have never had before. And what I can tell you, as I said earlier in the discussion, we have actually seen both our claim level quality increase as a focus of really focusing in on training, really focusing in with our quality review teams. We took a major investment of the compensation staff to be doing in-process checks and reviews of how people are doing and errors that we typically see. And as a result of that, we've actually reduced those errors rather significantly over the last year. And that, I think, has contributed to the growth of our quality numbers in the process. When we look at performance, we look at it both from a production and a quality environment. One can't trade for the other.
Well, of course. I mean, I understand that they're going to be relatively complicated review because claims are different. I mean, you can't expect somebody to process 10 claims an hour because obviously there's going to be a lot of different variables there. But it seems to me that there should be some standards of performance that you have, and maybe that would be another thing that I'd like to see what exactly the standards of performance are. And you said it's complicated. Could you give me, Ms. Rubens, perhaps you're the one that we should get that. I'd like to get that information. I mean, what would be substandard performance then, in view of the complicated nature of the review that Ms. Hickey relates?
We'd be happy to share that information with you effectively as if I'm a veteran service representative or a rating veteran service representative. I have some expectations about the number of things that I do, and they vary depending on what part of the process the claim is in, gathering the evidence and making the decision, as well as quality that the Undersecretary alluded to. The quality review teams are there looking at claims every month for each employee to ensure that they are doing a quality job. But we'd be happy to provide some of that information that helps illuminate that. General Hickey mentioned the improvement in the quality that we're seeing across the system. Organizationally, we've done about 30,000 more claims this year from an output standpoint as well than we did last year up until this time. I would tell you that I think over 50% of the employee workforce are veterans themselves. They're very committed to what we're doing. And working within the system of performance, it's not just about the performance improvement, but celebrating the successes that they've brought for veterans.
And if I might just add one quick thing, they have done all those improvements while they have gone through the singularly largest series of changes and transformation this organization has seen in decades. So not only did they improve their production, improve their quality, but they did it while going through a major, major change.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your comments. I actually appreciate Mr. Kaufman's ideas as well. I hope that is taking place, and I look forward to seeing your responses to my ask. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the gentleman, and thank you all for being here. General Hickey, Ms. Rubens, thank you for your testimony. You're now excused. This concludes our hearing for today. I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include all extraneous material. Hearing no objection, so ordered. I'd like to once again thank our witnesses and audience and members for joining us here for today's conversation, and this hearing is now adjourned.